and I would not be who I am, where I am. Forget about even where I am in business, just who I am as a person. If I didn't have the network around me that was willing, you have to be willing to reach out, but they also have to be willing to reach back. And I've built, especially the last 5 years since getting into the podcast, and I joined an executive leadership group about 10 years ago. And I said, I need to get exposure to more people in different avenues of life that I just wouldn't normally run into. I went there for business and I came away with friendships, relationships, long-term supportive, and it goes both ways, the willingness to give of yourself and the willingness to even ask for help.
Look into his eyes. They're the eyes of a man obsessed by
success.
Eyes that mock our sacred institutions. Bedroom eyes, they call them in a bygone day.
Sex desire is the most powerful of human desires. When driven by this desire, men develop keenness of imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and creative ability unknown to them at other times. So strong and impelling is this desire for sexual contact that men freely run the risk of life and reputation to indulge in. When harnessed and redirected along other lines, this motivating force maintains all of its attributes of keenness of imagination, courage, etc., which may be used as powerful creative forces in literature, art, or in any other profession or calling, including, of course, the accumulation of riches. Napoleon Hill.
Welcome to the Little Blue Pill for Business podcast, where it's all about getting it up and keeping it up. And yes, we're talking about revenue and profits. We all know that it's about the 6 inches between your ears. So I interview some of the hottest people in the industry that are blowing and going so we can help you get on some action. So if you like a little tongue in cheek and not just physically, you're in the right place. Today, we are jumping in bed with my most amazing guest, Tyler. Tyler, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Michelle, it's absolutely my pleasure. That is, I love, that is a feisty intro. I quite love it.
Excellent.
The tone has been set in case you think you're in the wrong place. You are or you aren't. Rock and roll.
Don't tell anybody where you are right now unless they're into this stuff. Entrepreneurialism. So awesome. With that note, give everybody a highlight of who you are and what you do for business.
My name is Tyler Chisholm.
Who they're playing with.
Of course, who they're getting into bed with, I think, is the theme that works for today. My name is Tyler Chisholm. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Clearmotive Marketing. We're an agency that's based here we're based in Calgary, Alberta, and we've got teams across the country. We were a Calgary, Toronto business, but during COVID, we expanded our horizons, and now we have team members across Canada and a few actually that are stationed out around the world. And we provide marketing to mid to large enterprise clients across the country from the perspective of a marketing operations, high volume, hardworking campaigns in market. Our clients work really hard in competitive industries to stay in front of their customers, not only with the tactics and tools, but with the messages that matter. And we've been doing that for companies for the past 15 years. And my passion project is I'm a host of 2 podcasts, one called Collisions YYC, where we focus on economic transformation in Calgary and Southern Alberta, soon to be expanded across Alberta to really take in the whole province. And then I have a second one called They Just Get It, where I get to talk to the weirdos, the freaks, the people that live outside the norm of what maybe your, how did you end up doing what? So I have that as my guilty pleasure, where I get to talk to people to really unpack that there is no set way to live your life, and be curious, and you can find some really cool shit out there.
I love it. Well, and it kind of still cracks me up when people say I'm here in, and it's like, so you're here on planet Earth with the rest of us? That's great.
I am 100%. I think that geography still matters. People still, there's a form of connection that happens, but does it limit you? No, it doesn't. That's what I will be always thankful to COVID for.
Nice. Well, and when you talk about business, you talk about it in my experience, a unique way, in that you are talking to the movers and shakers, the people who want to stay on the edge, and Calgary tends to be, in my humble opinion, having been born and raised here, a very entrepreneurial city, and a very much, it's not about kind of, and I want to make this distinction because I think it's a fun distinction to make, is that there is kind of the New York energy of business of we will kill and take over the world. It's Martin the Martian kind of an energy. Okay. I love it. Don't get me wrong. And Calgary, in my humble opinion, tends to have a a more of a Wile E. Coyote kind, or not Bugs Bunny, I guess it would be, because it's more of a fun. Yeah, we're going to conquer the world, but we're going to have fun with it. Like, and we tend to leave and disperse and take over the world. And so I joke that I'm one of 50 of us that was born and raised here because of that energy. So in your opinion of Calgary energy and Alberta energy for the podcast in particular, what do you notice about it and what gives it that spark for you?
Oh, such a great question. I moved here 24 years ago in February. So I've been here almost as long as I was there, a couple of years, and it'll even up here. But I fell in love with the people, and more importantly, I fell in love with the business community. And I think you described it really, really well. From there is we're going to get shit done, but we're going to do it. We're going to be a little bit nice about it. We're going to be very collaborative. We're going to be willing to, I might not be able to help you, but I can introduce you to someone that can. And I'm actually going to do it. I'm not just going to give you the like, hey, yeah, winks and guns. So yeah, I got you. No, there's actually a follow through here that is, I think, coming from a place where there's been a sense of abundance. Our energy sector here has given us a lot of success in this province. I don't think sometimes there's the level of scarcity that I've experienced in other places where it's shit. If you get ahead, I might not. And I didn't experience that here at all. I experienced this in a way that if you could provide value, if you could bring something to the table, it didn't matter who your dad was. It didn't matter if you'd had a certain pedigree or went to a certain school. It was like, oh, you have value. I need that value. I will hire you. And oh, by the way, if it goes well, I'll tell 5 other people I know that they should also hire you. So we can all be successful together and really do cool shit. And oh, let's go grab a beer. And have you heard about Stampede? And it really hooked me. And I never moved away. I never left. It's been a fantastic province. The amount of stuff that happens here and the hustle that happens, but it happens in a quieter way than in some of the other cities. I spent a lot of time in Toronto, grew up in Montreal, and those cities are great. They're just very different. I fell in love with this formula, which is, the Alberta secret sauce, which is hard to describe maybe until you experience it firsthand, but it's very palatable.
I agree. And I think to some extent it might be because of the boom and bust. Like every 10 years, whether we like it or not, we kind of go through a boom and a bust. Yeah. And we almost understand that we need to have this camaraderie and that you need to get good now so that I can take advantage of your services and things, because in 5 years that might change. And it's almost like we get it. It's my parents used to say, when you grow up on the farm, when winter comes that you need to bring everybody inside. Like nobody gets left outside, no matter where they live, no matter what they do. And then come summer, you can kind of figure out your differences and they can go home.
Well, I wonder how much you say that is related to someone said to me, is like, Alberta's not that, it's more maverick than it is entrepreneurial. It's more, there's more of a pioneering nature here where you had to rely on each other. Like you struck off, but not usually alone. Like you built the barn together, there is something to be rooted in that I don't think can be overlooked. And just by the nature of, when the East was settled versus here, there's just a different timeline at play as well. We're closer to that. Then you add the boom and bust cycle on top of that. And the boom is boom. And it does kind of raise up everybody. We've got a huge ag community here that's always had to be resilient, always had to be adapt. I think there's more to it than just like, that's a funny way to explain it. I think that actually is part of the part of the DNA, which stands to really be curious when you think about how many of us aren't from here. So that theory should kind of fall apart. But I don't know. I think we absorb some of those values when we show up here, or they go, hey, I like that value. I can feel that value. I'm going to go all in on that and become Albertan.
I love it. And I'm hoping that as we grow and as we boom again, that will continue to be the foray, because I really do think deep down that entrepreneurial spirit will save the world and will change the world when we understand kind of how we succeed and how we empower others in doing so. But you have had a lot of experience in the Calgary business world. What is it that's kind of, like you mentioned what makes you tick about it, but having interviewed so many different people on it, having built your business nationally, and I'm going to guess to some extent internationally, how, if you could bring anything out to the world as kind of what you've learned in these kind of, let's call it the last 25 years, what would you love that legacy to be?
You're getting old when someone goes, in the last 25 years, what have you learned? I'm like, wow, geez, I don't know how I like that, how that feels.
I don't know.
I'll take it. I will absolutely take it. The collaborative nature of this community floors me consistently, and I would not be who I am, where I am. Forget about even where I am in business, just who I am as a person. If I didn't have the network around me that was willing, you have to be willing to reach out, but they also have to be willing to reach back. And I've built, especially the last 5 years since getting into the podcast, and I joined an executive leadership group about 10 years ago. And I said, I need to get exposure to more people in different avenues of life that I just wouldn't normally run into. I went there for business and I came away with friendships, relationships, long-term supportive, and it goes both ways. The willingness to give of yourself and the willingness to even ask for help. Like, I think that for me has been a huge angle. I grew up in a small rural community where even if you didn't like your neighbor, you still helped them. Like, it just was how it was. Like, you might be, you might give them a hard time, or so-and-so does this, or so, it's a small town. So it's also very gossipy, but then if they get into trouble, you literally would give them the shirt off your back. And that sounds very, very extreme and a little bit hokey almost, but not only is Calgary like that, but when you're willing to lean into that and also participate, like, it absolutely is your turn to give and your turn to take. But just asking and putting yourself out there and relying on that kind of de facto network, or like almost board of advisors that kind of starts to emerge around you over time in business. I know that can happen anywhere. I just feel that there's a willingness or an openness that it happens a little bit easier here.
Well, when you mention exposure, I can't help but hooking onto that comment
Of
and
course.
going, it does work here. And in some places it doesn't necessarily work. And I totally get and appreciate that exposing yourself to other people in the rest of the world doesn't
It's
always
met with mixed results, Michelle.
exactly. Let's put it that way. That's a good way to put it. So when it comes to this podcast is international. We bizarrely and delightfully have listeners from all around the world.
Amazing.
So when it comes to doing business and having kind of a culture, have you noticed that you can kind of pinpoint the people that you want to be around and surround yourself with them? Is there a way to do that, especially when it comes to, let's go back to marketing and what you do when you're honing in on kind of your ideal client? You're going, I really want to surround myself with this kind of people. I really want to have these kind of clients. I really want to. Can you do that, or do you have to kind of understand the culture that you're in and swim in those waters?
I think there's a balance of both. I think that, when you first start, let's go back to the early days of business. So you first start adding people to the team. It's a little bit happenstance, or it can be. It was for us, where we didn't necessarily know who we were. So we didn't know how to hold up every candidate and go, okay, do they look like this group that's like, that was deliberately structured and put together? And we learned that the hard way. We grew very quickly. I think, at one point we won a wager. We were 9 people. We won this major account. We went to like 25 people in 3 months. Half those hires should not have ever been hired. So like, you learn.
Hey, you walking past the door. Come here.
Yeah,
No, he is a
100%.
computer.
Sometimes
That's awesome.
chasing warm bodies, and it's like it's 2 a.m. and the lights are about to go on. Like, who can I grab? Since we're and we made a lot of those errors kind of going forward, and even with bringing on the wrong clients. And I still remember, like, wow, working with clients that their culture was so different than ours. And when you're a vendor, you're in service. It's just part of the DNA of doing that. But yet, when you kind of don't know who you are. And in the early days, you chase revenue, you chase dollars, like, yeah, we got to say yes to this client. But you start to all of a sudden get this feeling that's like, this isn't going to work. This is going to fucking suck. Like, this is not going to be good. We won the business, but what did we really get? Yeah, I want a hand grenade in the bottom of the boat with the pin out. Oh, when's I going to blow my leg off? But over the years, we started to really narrow in on not only who we were as owners, myself, my business partner, but as a team, and really started to identify observable behaviors, like be accountable, be helpful, be curious to learn, be resourceful, and speak up. Those are our values. And it doesn't take long to interact with either a potential new candidate to join the team, a new contractor, or a new client. And did they do what they say they were going to do? Like, were they actually helpful, or were they trying to like test you and make your life kind of shitty to prove whether you should be there? Like, there's a lot of things that can happen in that service dynamic that you're like, oh, this isn't going to work out well. But it took us a while to get there. And it's no different than being around for a few years. I just turned 50 recently. So when you say the 25-year comment, if you're doing it right, you're kind of observing and figuring out who you are in that journey so that you can more quickly be a little bit more, like, I like to joke, keep the axe behind your door, but use it sparingly. But no, you're like, this relationship is not going to serve me. I need to just step away from it. I need to cut it out because it's not who I am and what I'm about. And I think that translates all the way through to organizations. It's a struggle because you've got things like revenue and payroll and mouths to feed and roofs over people's heads. The lesson you learn very quickly is those short-lived problems that get solved only get replaced by the long term of like, this is not the right relationship. We need to break up and see other people. And I think that stems right through you building your team, which starts there, to seeing that reflection of, kind of who you sign on with.
Mm. I love this conversation in that I see a lot of businesses taking on anybody that pays the bills, and kind of my advice to them is to sever the ties as quickly as possible with the understanding of when you're a puppy in business, you have a lot to learn. Some people come across as assholes, but they're actually doing you a huge service, letting you know, hey, you actually have a huge gap in your customer service. Hey,
Yep.
you actually have a huge gap in your SOPs. Hey, you actually have a gap and we don't like that because it bruises our egos. So I don't want them to fire people too quickly, but at the same time, I don't want them to keep them lingering to the point of a deterrent.
I
How
think
do
that's the
you
difference when you talk about values and like, do we misalign on a values perspective to someone telling you something you're not ready or don't like to hear? That's a difference. So I agree with you 100% on that. But when you're not sure about the values, everything can feel like an attack, and that's where it gets messy.
right? So when somebody's kind of in that phase, is there kind of a methodology that you use to be able to determine you kind of when you slice the clients that aren't working for you anymore?
I think one broader perspective, like don't get sucked into you can't see the label when you're inside the bottle. It's a joke. We've always made it clearmotive, and whether that's from a client perspective or even sometimes you get so close to an issue and you're like, damn them, screw them, or you get fired up. One, look for emotion. Is there emotion running rampant? Is it an indicator, or is that starting to become your rudder? Like, is that how you're making your decisions? Have other people on your team that can look at the situation you're in and go, hey, like, this is how this is making me feel. And I think sometimes those words are even hard in business. Well, what do you mean feel? This is business. No, it makes me feel shitty, or it makes me angry, or it makes me upset, or I'm actually offended. Getting comfortable with those feelings and having a trusted teammate, whether it's a coach or someone that's maybe close enough to it to understand the situation, but they can say, well, you know what? Hey, I see where you're coming from. Here's another way to look at it. Have a mirror, have a counterpart, have someone that can give you a different perspective, because the feels can get really messy in business and we pretend like they shouldn't show up, but yet we're humans having a messy experience. So I always like to have a sober second thought. I've had a business partner my whole career, and it's a business marriage, and we look at everything very differently. When it got really effective was when we could be honest of like, actually, this is making me feel kind of pissed off, or like, because it actually makes me feel like I blew it or I failed, and you start getting to the real pain of it. Then you can identify, is this his issue, what it is, or is this just me reacting? Is this is me getting triggered? And I think that takes a little bit of maturity, but add some trusted partners to the mix. That makes a big difference.
Well, I always like to look at, okay, is there any truth to what they're saying? Whether I like it or not, is there any truth to what they're saying? Do we want to work on this issue? And if the answer is yes, great, let's go work on it and come back and see whether or not the relationship changes. And if we've changed the thing, but the relationship doesn't change, it's like, okay, we've outgrown our growth period.
Sometimes it might be you, sometimes it might be them. Sometimes we just need to go see other people. Getting back to the, is it a one night stand or is this a long-term relationship? What are we doing here?
Absolutely. And I want to kind of, you had that one client that kind of built you up and dragged you through that growth phase, whether you liked it or not.
100%. I feel very fortunate for that journey.
And some people want to have that experience, or they want to be able to control that experience. In your experience, is it better to have an accidental elephant client, or is it better to plan for it and to create that growth so that you have that? And if like lessons learned, what would you do differently or not?
Is yes appropriate? Is yes an acceptable answer to that question?
Absolutely. Yes, dear. Whatever you say.
Yeah.
No idea what you just asked me, but
yeah. No,
absolutely.
but the answer is yes. Do I recommend stumbling into a large multinational client that's going to drag you from a 9-person shop to a 30-person shop at the pace that they determine, not you determine? I'm a little bit of, bite off more than you can chew, keep chewing. But I'm a big believer in, like, there's a point where if you set your team up for failure too often and the gap is too far, it's kind of the rule of, let's start with the rule of stretch. The rule of stretch says that if you get the ball in the basket 7 out of 10 times, you're like, oh, this is fun. I like this game. You get it out of 10 and 10 times, it's too easy. You actually lose interest. You're not being stimulated. But if you only get it in 3 out of 10 times, you're like, I'm discouraged. I suck. I hate this game. I don't want to get better at it. So there's a fine line in the middle there. And I think you need to prepare and prep. But if you're a small business and you're on a growth path, you sometimes don't know what you don't know. If this is your first run or you're just learning it, if you've done it a couple times and you're coming back and you've got a bit of a playbook, but it's hard to put pages in my playbook for a game I've never played before. When we won that client, we never played that enterprise game before. And all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, but we knew enough and had enough self-awareness, and all these bring this back to personal development and somehow to know, wow, this is the best thing for us because this is going to force us to level up in a way. Oh my God. Okay. We have a year to get through because that's when the contract renews. Let's hold on by our fingernails and go as fast as we can. And the price that you pay for that sometimes can be your staff, sometimes can be your sanity, sometimes can be simply be the wear and tear that plays on your organization. So being as prepared for it as you can. But sometimes I'm also a believer that you got to jump in the ring. And, if you want to get better at skiing, go skiing with somebody who's better and faster than you, but not so much better and faster that you're discouraged sitting on the chairlift, wondering where they are and they've left you alone and you're lost on the hill. There's a balance in the middle of all that. But I think you've got to put yourself in an environment to stretch while constantly doing everything you can. Back to those external resources, bring in people that have been there before, bring in people that are going to tell you to do things that you're like, that's not important. 6 months from now, you're like, oh shit, they were right. I should have done that. That is growth in business. And the other argument is, you're the right person for the job. You just have to run to keep up with them. Because there's always the scenario in business or often that, oh man, if I just had somebody who'd done this before, this would be easier. Like, am I even the right owner? Am I even the right leader? Am I the right person for this? The argument is you absolutely are, because you're the person who's there at that intersection. It's what you do to level up is that effort and energy it takes to get there.
Right. I know you gave a basketball analogy, but all I heard was sex. So
anything that's worth being good at is worth sucking at it at the beginning. So you can take that any way you want.
Exactly. It's all about me. Don't worry. I totally get that. So when it comes to, dating somebody that's out of your class and out of your league, I think it's better to at least go after that than it is to stick around in the quagmire of I can get what I want whenever I want. Because those smaller clients that aren't like, there are people that love to deal with startups, and good on you. I love you to pieces. But there's a lot of people who think they need to start there and don't get into the right market fast enough. And I think that creates a lot of negativity and a lot of strife in business when they think they're failing, but they're just servicing a high maintenance client that isn't really a high maintenance client, if you know what I mean.
Startups are way harder to work with, in my opinion. Like,
right?
That's an incredibly difficult place to start. Because you're trying to learn, and so are they. That is a bad, like, that's a tough marriage.
Exactly. I would way rather strive to get a big client and live up to that and learn all the things that you have to, because too, even if they don't renew with you, you have stories to tell, you have experiences to tell that put you up a notch, that allows your new prospects to go, is that really me? Is that not me? And they tend to self-filter, and you don't get as many of those kind of needy clients, and you start getting more of the ones that want you and know, hey, you're capable of doing this. Awesome. Let's take it up a notch and go to a next level.
And it's on you to become clear of what that is and what that isn't, right? And that is hard. You can spend all day talking about it. You're going to know more a month from now than you knew today. So there is a degree of that just does factor into time.
Nice. Are there any other kind of lessons for people that you've noticed that are going into that, what I'm going to call the growth phase of finding they've got this, yard sale of products and services, and they're kind of servicing everybody, and they're going, okay, it's time to hone in on that thing that we're good at, find that client that we're good at working with. In that phase, is there any kind of learned lessons or recommendations that you want to give people?
Oh, putting through your own pace of really understanding, like, I'm going to make it a little bit personal at that phase. Like, what problem do you actually love solving? And is there an audience that actually needs that problem solved and is willing to pay for it? And everyone's like, oh yeah, that's so obvious. But we really get into, and it's even like having a small team, when everyone can do a bunch of things, who really owns what? And I think being able to own, and we have a lot of conversations with our clients, especially that smaller to medium size, like, who is the actual ideal customer profile? What is it that what is the competitive advantages of the thing you do for them? Then let's find out a way to message it. And it sounds so simple, but like, well, yeah, but it's not just them, it's this group and it's also them. But we also have this product, we have that product. What has got the highest chance of success? What has the best margins? What is the most successful? Also set yourself up for some wins. It doesn't mean you can't do those other things and they won't come up, but what do you want to be known for? And also, what are you the most successful at? I also find that a lot of companies, especially let's talk about the companies that hire us, like, I want to market the thing that's the hardest to market. We're having the most trouble selling. I'm like, okay, let's talk about that. Maybe, especially if you're new to it and you're not really experienced with running active ongoing campaigns, and maybe you're not super sophisticated in the way you onboard your digital marketing. Let's pick something that's already successful and let's focus either on growing that audience or going to a new market with a similar audience, finding ways where not everything is a variable, where you're like, okay, if there's 3 things and 2 of them I'm pretty sure of and one I want to test, let's try that. Or maybe there's one thing I'm sure about the ICP, I'm not sure about the product or the messaging. So let's try 2 different products and see what lands in terms of lead gen and putting up a landing page. Try to go where there's at least a couple known commodities. I know that can be hard in really early days when you're looking for that fit, but if you're testing everything at the same time, it's not really testing, it's more chaos. And I find a lot of companies lean towards that because, like, yeah, I want the hard thing to be better. How about the thing that you're kind of comfortable with? Let's go make that awesome. That gives you a really good framework. And then maybe we can test some of the other things afterwards. And it sounds so, I think, oh, wow, thanks, Tyler, for your armchair wisdom here. But so many companies overlook that thing right in front of them that they kind of take for granted that the customer actually does value and is willing to pay for. And you guys are really good at delivering it. Let's go focus on that. Again, simple wisdom, but often true.
Well, and I often use Apple as the example of that when they first went with iPod. It was a known kind of story where they had 57 products and Steve just went, nope, we're doing this one. All you guys we're working on this one now. And here's what we're going to do. So it wasn't we're laying off the entire company and we're going to go with this product. It was, this is the one thing that we need to focus on in order to make a mark in the industry and in a marketplace. When you are suggesting that somebody take the most profitable, most enjoyable, kind of the low-lying fruit of things, why do you suggest that they do that?
Simply put, you'll see success sooner, and success creates energy, and energy creates forward motion. Forward motion creates opportunity. Opportunity creates revenue. Revenue creates even more opportunities, and then you can scale your business. So I think that it's often playing in that place, and don't ever underestimate the impact. Like, I'm going to speak from a marketing perspective. We get so caught up focusing into this outside audience. If your internal team feels accomplished and feels like the thing they're doing is actually working and they're feeling successful, that, like, your internal team is always your first audience for every message and every campaign or every direction you take. In marketing, it's so easy to chase that layer of the people that you don't know that have never heard of you, but you stumble over your vendors, the people that do know you, your existing card, you stumble over so many layers of opportunity to chase this elusive layer, which is the hardest to get and the most expensive to buy to get them, versus you get your internal team really jazzed up with some success and some solid wins. I think the energy that creates exponentially can grow you beyond cracking the code on this magic audience with this most difficult product that you've never positioned before. Get that foundation in place, especially in the early days when those wins are what really bring a team together. The energy it creates is amazing.
I just love it. So when it comes to kind of your ideal client, the clients that you're working with, those high functioning, they're on it, they've got it. And what do you see as some of the mistakes that they're making before they come to you? And how do you work with them to be able to get them on the track that they want to be on, other than obviously focusing on that product?
Interesting. Well, depending on sizing, if it's a larger client in our world, the mistake is that they're just using another agency. They're not using us. So that's their mistake. Sorry.
Fair enough.
There's a very big difference between the level of company that knows they need to use marketing. Like most of our larger clients, they're going to work with a partner. The goal is that they choose us and we continue to provide value to them, so they continue to choose us in the future. We're not convincing them that marketing is a good idea. Lots of times with smaller to medium-sized companies, they don't necessarily understand the power of marketing in the first place. So the journey there is understanding the role that marketing can play in their business and having the leadership team value that. If they don't see the potential and see value, it's going to be really hard to be successful, and that's going to make for a difficult mix. Say that it's a group.
Can I just interject here? Because
Sure.
I think business is a 3-legged stool with marketing, sales, and fulfillment. And if you dismiss one of those legs completely, you're not really in business. Just saying.
I would agree. Yet to
Yeah,
that at
they do
their
it.
peril, there's a lot of companies that do it. The
Fair enough.
companies that do it at that level, this might be universal, but I'll say at the smaller to medium sized company level, they often take for granted the core competencies that they're truly the best at. Back to this thing of like, oh no, we're going to sell this thing over here. I'm like, why? Like, where does that even fit in? That doesn't even seem like it actually lines up with your business. A lot of times they're so close to what they do, they take for granted the things that are actually the value propositions and the differentiators that make a difference to their customer. Back to core competencies. I honestly don't care if you're family owned. I don't care if you've been in business for 30 years. Oh, you can reduce my non-productive downtime by 30 minutes. And you just think that that's what everybody's doing? No, not everybody's doing that. Actually, nobody's doing that. Why can't we have that? I don't give a shit about all this other stuff. They really make a mistake of what they think their customers care about. The difference of like purpose and positioning versus what's the actual value proposition that matters. I would say sometimes with larger companies, I think the biggest challenge they face, I don't think it's what doing wrong, the high volume and the consistently always on approach. If you're a company that works in a competitive, often commoditized, very consumer facing or consumer driven space. If you're B2B, you've got some other issues, but we'll talk about more the consumer side. How do they maintain a degree of quality and consistent volume and very metrics driven while simultaneously not losing sight of the fact that good creative and good messaging and really engaging that customer still matters, no matter how many digital tools or how much metrics that you have. Don't think one's going to overlap the other. And I think sometimes that's an error that happens in our modern era, like, oh, digital is going to solve my problems. Yes, but you still need to know your customer and get your messaging right. And then digital is going to do a great job of letting you know where it worked and when it didn't work. B2B, you got a whole other different bag of tricks where the companies that are winning in the B2B space probably, I would say, act more like business to consumer. They have regular content, they have quality, they deliver a marketing journey alongside their sales or ahead of maybe their sales funnel or their sales process that lets the customer go, wow, this company is the right brand and the right partner for me. Where a lot of the mistakes is made is we spend all the money on fulfillment, R&D, and new product development and sales, but our sales team doesn't have the marketing collateral. We don't have the positioning. A lesser competitor, and I see this all the time, like, oh, their product's not even, ours is better, but yet they've done such a better job with their marketing. I see that happen in the B2B space a lot, and it's improving as everyone's realizing the role that that marketing or that telling your story or that quality creative in support of a good message and a customer and knowing what your customers care about. That's universal, but I think it does change based on your size, your scope, and how big that marketing hammer is in your business.
Right. Is there a direction that you see, let's start with B2C, going other than everybody's talking about Chat GPT still? And to your point,
The role AI is going to play. Yeah, totally.
I don't even want to go with AI. Just where do you see the marketing trends? If people feel like they've been left behind, is there room to catch up? Like what kind of trends and things do you see happening, especially in the B2C world?
People feeling, I want to unpack, people feeling they're being left behind, the consumer or the businesses themselves? How do you mean?
Well, let's go with the founders, because I'm going to assume that it's the founders that are listening to this going, okay, how do we stay pertinent? How do we stay on top of the trends? How do we stay when it seems like there's just this tsunami of change coming in?
First of all, and this is that people want the ChatGPT answer, but
no, I don't want that.
Good. I know you don't. So thank you. Tell me about trendy things there, and
no,
there's some cool stuff going on there.
Don't.
I think it's even more critical to not lose sight of the basics. Who is your ideal customer profile? What is it about your business that they value? How are you communicating that in a way that they actually understand? And then, and you even said earlier, fulfillment. How are you actually carrying that brand promise through the actual journey? Like the infinity symbol. It's like, great, you marketed and you told the story and you convinced them and you got them to buy. And then they became a customer and they went, whoa, this is nothing like that experience. I think that critical juncture of making sure that there's a consistency that pulls all the way through. But you have to do it through knowing, and there's a fine balance here. The old joke, if you asked the customer what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, which is the Henry Ford quote. Sometimes getting really close to that customer and having enough customer centricity to like being able to articulate that we understand what they want, but because we know your space so well, we're actually going to do this other piece for you because we think that's actually going to help solve your problem. And there's a fine balance between delivering on the base foundation and not losing sight of that versus not thinking you have all the magic answers, but still being able to empathize with that customer's problem, challenge, opportunity, fall in love with the customer's problem, not your version of the problem. That is going to be so critical going forward as it becomes more competitive, and people get more inefficient to pump out even more volume using all the technology tools that are just flooding the market with content, the content that really lands on the customers going, wow, you actually get me. And holy shit, that made me think about something in a new way. That still does get cut through. It's just harder. It's just harder to get it in front of the right customer.
Well, and to your point, so I personally kind of detest the whole chat GPT conversation, but I think it's pertinent because people are looking for the change. But to your point, I think that one of the biggest changes people are looking for is somebody who's listening to them, not somebody who's listening to the trend. So if you're listening to your clients and they say, I want a faster horse, and you have a very creative team of iron workers, they're going to build an iron horse. They're going to build an iron horse with a motor and go, hey, I think this might actually solve your problem. And they're going to go, hey, that you heard me. That is exactly what I'm looking for. I want to be able to sit somewhere. I want to be able to be in comfort, and I want it to go really fast and not have to lose my energy to be able to make it happen, or whatever the parallel is. And I think the more that we can hone in on who our ideal clients are, the more we're going to hone in on that particular message. And we're going to let go of this feeling of, yeah, but I need the whole market. I need to have, 10,000 hits on this ad. It's like, no, you don't. You need 3 of the right people.
Well, and that's
3 of the right people, and you're going to rock it.
And so often when you get into B2B service or even B2B product, you don't need 1,000 clients. You need 5 or 10. Like if you're in a service business and you're small, you need a handful of the quote unquote, the right clients to your point of being able to lean in and like be there for them and connect and not try to the total addressable market versus addressable versus like, what can we actually even deal with and who is the best for us kind of where we are on our journey. That list gets a lot shorter, a lot faster, which the world of traditional marketing doesn't lend well to that. It's high volume. It's fractions of percentages of click-throughs, where the ability to target, the ability to use some of the tools to talk about the technology, to get out there and deliberately get in front of those people. And, whether it's to connect them, ask them for advice, like there's so many ways now to get connected with people that you don't have to run an ad campaign, because at your end, if your win is only 5 clients at the end of the day, running a $20,000 ad campaign, that's not a good use of funds. That's just not the right tool for the problem you're solving.
Absolutely. So I know our listeners are going to want more from you. How did they start their journey with you?
Oh, check out tylerchisholm.com. I put a website together last year. Seems so funny. I put together a website and I called it my own name, but I put all the stuff there. You can check out the website. You can go to the podcast there. It's a little bit of a place to kind of pull it all together. Got some fun articles. I'm really exploring the role curiosity plays in my life, and more importantly, curiosity in the role of leadership. So I've been doing some writing on that. If you're curious about curiosity, have I got an article for you? But yeah, check out tylerchisholm.com. You can also find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, clearmotive.ca, all the places, Michelle. I'm in all the places.
If you're business curious, we have the answers for you.
Starts with a B, yes.
I love it. You've been absolutely awesome. And you also had I want to mention this before we leave because it did strike me as hilarious, and and everything after but is bullshit.
Yes,
Talk to me
absolutely.
about that.
Well, Michelle, I've really enjoyed this podcast. It's been fantastic, but I wonder how it would go if you kind of asked different questions or gave me the questions in advance. What part of that statement, don't differently. What part of that statement did you actually hear? Oh my gosh, your hair looks amazing, but that dress looks horrible on you. I learned it years ago, the negation that happens. And so often we, just change it. I love this podcast, and I wonder what it would be like if we did this. Very much just sets up your audience. And if you're being curious, what words are you using that are potentially shutting down the other person? And but is such a big part of our society. It's almost like a breath. It's almost like a pause, but it can have real negative impact. So I wrote an article playing around with what part of your own language as a leader, manager, friend, human being is actually getting in the way and shutting down that other person, especially if that was never your intention. It's one thing if you do it on purpose and have some fun with it and kind of manipulate your words. It's another thing if all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm having these conversations and I'm getting met with like just not a great kind of, this is not working. There might be some words buried in there that you might be putting landmines for your friend or whoever you're talking to is stepping on. You're not even realizing you're doing it. So I just wrote an article about it because it kind of came up in a conversation. I'm like, this is fun. I'm going to take this out for a walk.
I love it. I see so many business leaders that come across as assholes and they don't know why. And I think that the majority of them use but in their language a lot. It's like, wow, that was really great. But, next time we have to do it this way. And it's back to my agenda and how I see things.
Back
and
to
they
me.
wonder,
Back to me.
Hey, back to me. Yeah, you were great, but it's really all about me. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, so-
Yeah, go
Oh.
ahead. No, go ahead. No,
I
but
was
we
just
we, we
saying,
could talk about this all day, Michelle.
again, I know I could talk to you all day, all day. Trust me. I could preoccupy a lot of your time, but your wife might not like that. So when it comes to the article, how do people find the article?
TylerChisholm.com, TylerChisholm.com, and just go click on My Mind. And there's a whole bunch of musings that you will find there. And that's the most recent one I posted last week.
Love it. So peeps, go and look for that one. Go to tylerchisholm.com. We, of course, will have all of Tyler's links in the show notes. So go ahead and scroll down and open up in a new browser because, of course, we're not done yet. So I get to ask you, because I always do, is at what point in life did you know that you're a special kind of crazy enough to think that you could become an entrepreneur?
2002. That's when I realized I was unemployable and enthusiastic about it. And I have never gotten a paycheck for anyone else but my own bank account, which is a weird way to think about it, ever since. So 2002 is when I closed that door, and I have never looked back.
Nice. I love it. Well, and we are all very grateful that door closed on your butt and
Thank you.
you decided to move on. Any last words for peeps?
Oh, fantastic, Michelle. No, thank you. Thank you to everyone who's listening. I love a good chat, and I'm curious about almost everything. So if you want to reach out, if there's anything I said that landed, anything that said that pissed you off, by all means, reach out. I would love to have a conversation about it. And high five, Michelle. Thanks for creating a platform. As a fellow podcaster, I recognize the joy that can come from this, but I also know how much work goes into it. So thank you very much.
So my pleasure. Peeps, this is Michelle Nidlek, your mistress in business. Thank you for being here with us today and sharing some pillow talk. Be sure to subscribe to the show, share it with your friends. We love having business threesomes. Bring it on. Thank you for listening to the Little Blue Pill for Business podcast with your mistress in business, Michelle Nidlek. Why are you still here? Go to littlebluepillforbusiness.com and get your goodies. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to share it with somebody else that you know would enjoy getting it up in business. After you subscribe to the podcast, of course, so you won't miss any future episodes. Now, check the notes for links. Oh, and only tell your wife if she's into this, entrepreneurship. And I'll see you both on the other side.